Hey everyone, Chris here from Realridesharestories. On this channel we do a lot of different things within the rideshare industry, so if you're new here, make sure you hit that subscribe button, ring the bell for notifications. Before we get started, if you have a crazy Uber Lyft experience, whether you're a passenger or a driver, record it, send it my way, and maybe we could feature you on the channel. So in breaking news, in California, AB5 has just been signed. So yes, California, very interesting to say the least on what's going to happen. But yeah, AB5 was just signed moments ago when it came to AB5, and it's about that time the government steps in. Hey, if you're for it, cool. If you're not, other people aren't going to enjoy it. I mean, is it a step in the right direction? Yes and no. But we're not going to really get into that right now. I'm just saying that AB5 had just passed. Now, it was just signed. It's passed both the Assembly and the Senate previously. And I thought it was going to take a little bit longer for him to sign to weigh more options. But he did just sign it. These companies used independent. I get that, yeah. I agree. I don't think that, they're definitely making problems and surely misclassifying and exploiting. But the thing is, if they were, paying a decent wage to people like they used to, or if they were doing an 80-20 split, or even 75-25 split like they used to, now, you could see them taking, 50%, sometimes 60% of the fare. So it does cause a lot of problems. So yeah, I do think that they're exploiting for sure, and their greed got the best of them. And if they didn't let that happen, they were thinking, into the future, beyond just their IPO, maybe they wouldn't be in this predicament, and maybe they wouldn't be having this problem now where states are stepping in and calling different shots with new laws and new legislation. So yeah, it's pretty interesting. The law, I don't know. I've heard, Richard, I've heard January 1st, 2020 thrown around a lot. So I'm not exactly sure. All I know is this is going to be the beginning of a long battle between Uber and Lyft and other places and companies that are affected by AB5, as well as I'm sure drivers are going to be involved at some point somewhere, and then also between the legislator and the court system. So it's going to be a long battle because I'm sure they're going to appeal it as quick as possible. Uber and Lyft, and I believe it was DoorDash, all claimed to put $30 million each aside to put a 2020 ballot measure creating a new classification system for gig workers and drivers. So it's going to be pretty interesting for sure what's going to come out. Food delivery companies, so-called tech companies have been, it's been, a lot of people have, and a lot of people have been misclassified or exploited as independent contractors. Independent contractors are true business owners who can set everything and not just really told, hey, this is what you're going to do. So are Uber and Lyft drivers really independent contractors? No. But are they really employees? No. So yeah, there is something where, maybe AB5 is a step in the right direction for, at least the companies to come in and say, we can't do this any further, and they're coming in. But unfortunately, drivers are still kind of caught in this back and forth what's going on. So what are we? New classification. Yeah, that would be good. Something, maybe on-demand worker or something like that where it's in between. Uber took 50% of your long trip fare. Yeah, that's ridiculous. Step in the right direction because it forced company to change business model. Yeah, you're right. Richard, yeah, you live in Texas. It's not going to affect you. It's not going to affect anybody outside of California except for the fact that other states have been looking at different legislation when it comes to gig workers and gig economy. especially Uber and Lyft. And so, other states could follow suit. It's very possible. It's very likely other states will. Drivers will still have their flexibility. We can't say that. Sorry, Preem Tech. We can't really say that yet. Nobody actually knows what's going to happen when it comes to flexibility and whatnot. Lyft came out with an email and said that they're going to instill shifts and areas that people can work. Whether that's fear tactics or not, we don't know. Nobody does yet. The only thing that we do know is AB5 is signed, and it looks like it's going to take effect probably on January 1st, 2020. Although, again, we don't really know for sure what that's going to entail and how that landscape in California is going to look for everybody in that area. We just don't know yet. So unfortunately, we don't. There are plenty of companies that work on W-2. Yeah, I mean, there is, absolutely. I mean, that's kind of the new thing where they're like, yeah, come in whenever as long as the work gets done, type of thing. But, is that salary versus hourly? So, I mean, it's going to be a pretty interesting thing to see what happens here when it comes to drivers. And how they're going to be treated as employees, and how each company is going to, do what they're going to do. So it's going to be pretty interesting there for sure. What was it? Plenty of drivers, this stuff sucks, don't need it, stop protesting, take what you can get. Vegas, rideshare, I hear you there, but the problem is it's when, they have a piece of the pie and they're taking a little bit more of each pie. And then drivers are getting less and less. So that is a problem. If you started and continued the same amount of pay, so if you were doing the 80-20 split and still making $2 or so a mile, you'd probably be doing pretty well. You'd be making probably double what you're making now. Or very close to it. So, when they start taking away, you're going to run into problems where now they're saying, oh yeah, this is an exploitation, where people aren't making enough. And a lot of drivers out there who are driving are actually driving, not making money, but actually losing money on the ride because they don't necessarily know how to drive, where to drive, or their market or whatnot. So yeah, it's really something that, if they actually, kind of kept it level where it was, that would have been great. Absolutely. What's going on though? TaskRabbit is a true example of independent contractor. I don't know what TaskRabbit is. I'm going to actually look into that a little bit more just to see how their platform is set up and how their core system is. They had Sidecar back in the day. I don't even know if Sidecar's around. I haven't even heard anything recently. But yeah, Sidecar used to be where you could set your own everything essentially, and then it was just kind of the site was just kind of a liaison site where you could pick what you wanted and where you wanted to go and all that stuff, and pick the driver and kind of set your own route that way, and then they just take a little piece. So could they go something like that? If they wanted to really get out of AB5 in one way, shape, or form, they would have to give more power to drivers in terms of not allowing them to pass the ABC test. That's the only way they could do it, probably pretty quick, where they could just change part of their core and continue as is, meaning could drivers start making their own wages? Could we know where we're going before the ride, before getting to the ride, or like something like Uber Pro where you have to keep an 85% acceptance rate. Maybe it drops it down to 0%. You just drive and get a point system based on something for more rewards. I mean, all that stuff can help give drivers more control, which means then if they just want to become a lead generator between drivers and passengers, they could do that, something like that too. and it would side skirt AB5 altogether, continuing drivers making whatever amount of money, but calling a lot more of the shots. So are they willing to do that? Probably not. I don't know, but we'll see. Companies are creative. They always make it work for them. Drivers or employees, for that matter, can't really change it. Some companies are. There's a lot of companies out there, though, that will, try to take care of their workers or take care of their independent contractors or whatever it might be. Yes, there's greed that sets in, but there are some CEOs and there are some heads of companies that do want to make sure they take care of their employees, because they know that the employees are the backbone of their company, and if it wasn't for them, they would go completely under. And one of the examples you can use is, if the product or service that you're providing and you have employees, and something happens where it becomes illegal overnight, maybe there was an ingredient within that product that became banned, and then all of a sudden you can't create your product anymore, or there's issues creating it, you have to come up with something. If employees are taken care of and embrace where they work, they're going to come up with some sort of idea to fix fix that product or create a whole new product and take them into a different light. So if nobody cares, they're just going to walk away, find a new job, and go somewhere else. And right now, Uber and Lyft have done a lot of problems, both on their own employees as well as drivers and passengers alike, to cause a lot of problems. They just spent $500 million on trying to get PR to change their outlook and to change their whole presence when it came to passengers and drivers, and it ended up failing. And this is Uber that did that. Sorry, 15 years ago, maybe workers can change things now. Who knows? You can say that because of business. I know business too, but it's really going to depend on what they're going to do. We don't know what their decisions are in the executive side of things. The only thing you can really go off right now is the emails that both Uber and Lyft sent out to California drivers. And what Uber said is they're not going to follow suit. They're not going to change anything. They don't believe that drivers are the core, which some people might take as a smack in the face to drivers. Others might look at it and say, well, maybe that'll continue keeping things the same way. I don't know. Like I said, we don't know what's going on in their minds or what they want to do for their profits. There's probably a lot of people trying to come up and figure out what they should do and what they can do to either undermine AB5, to either work in their favor or whatever. So I'm sure that they have a lot of people doing that right now. So you see it in Vegas with all the casinos. Casinos give more money to workers, but they cut to make up for it. Companies will always make it work for them. Yeah, for the most part, they want profit, but like I said, some companies will let them will do something for them. More money for workers, price goes up for customers. It's going to go up. It did go up in New York City once they instated that mandatory minimum wage law. So New York City drivers now have that a minimum wage if they can make it on the app, which I talked about yesterday. There was a strike there that shut down parts of New York essentially for traffic all over Manhattan, but mostly the FDR. But yeah, they're getting a minimum wage, and they had to raise prices. And guess what? People are still using it because it's kind of a necessary thing. It's just worked itself and injected itself into the commonplace just in general when it comes to people needing transportation. So yeah, they're going to probably raise rates, so passengers are going to feel it. But if it continues going on, it's going to continue going on. these people's cars. It's more about a matter of morality. So what does it mean? I haven't been up to date to this. You live in Texas. It just means that in California, a law was introduced to reclassify independent contractors into employees if it passes a ABC or 3-part test. I don't remember what the 3 parts are, but it's essentially if the independent contractor was misclassified and should be actually classified as an employee. The reason why it came about is because last year there was a state supreme decision from the Supreme Court that was with a different company using independent contractors, and they used this ABC test to determine if they were really employees or independent contractors. So now they are just codifying it and changing the penal code when it comes to what a employee is versus what an independent contractor is. So if it passes an ABC test, they're a employee. If it doesn't, then they're an independent contractor. So it was just put into legislation. It went in at the end of 2018, the Assembly, AB5, Assembly Bill 5, and then crossed over in May to the Senate, where there were certain exemptions and changes to that law. And then today, just recently, within the hour, the governor of California signed it. So it is going to become law, and it is going to have a huge legal battle when it comes to these companies and all the different people in it. So it's not, this is just the initial part. There's a long, long way to go for it. So yeah, it's going to be Mitch off the fence. What's going on? Smakovich, yeah. You know, I mean, hey, everybody has their own opinion whether it's going to be good for them or not. I mean, you can kind of look into AB5 a little bit, if it's going to be good for you or not. I mean, time will tell, though, if it really will benefit drivers in any way, shape, or form or not, because, you know, it's just going to pretty much be up to the companies at this point how they're going to operate, if they're going to make, you know, flip or take the flexibility away, if they're going to make shifts, if they're going to put you into certain areas, if you can only drive for one company, or work for one company. It's going to be pretty interesting to see what happens and where it goes. Okay, you just sent, okay, cool, thanks about that TaskRabbit. TaskRabbit's an app that lets you choose whatever price you want to charge for whatever's. Okay, yeah, there's a few places like that that do that. So that's one of them. Fiverr does it for like some different things when it comes to the tech stuff. But yeah, there's a lot of things out there that does that. What's going to be the minimum wage and flexibility? We don't know. Nobody really knows yet. So it's going to be pretty interesting to see what happens over the next couple of months once this thing does start taking effect. So yeah, honestly, we don't know what it's going to actually mean. I'm sure all of that is going to come out. When I hear things, I'll let you guys know, especially when I know for sure. But like I said, if Lyft sent out an email, a lot of people are saying it's scare tactics, that you can only work, you know, you're going to lose flexibility. You have to work shifts. You only can work in a certain area, and you can't work for other gig companies. And you know what? It could be scare tactics, but it could be the truth. So that's one of the big things that people need to pay attention to, and just kind of weigh the options, because it's going to be something pretty big over the next few months. And then also if companies say, oh, you can only work for one company, while other companies say you can work for multiple, now it's up to the driver to make a choice too on where they want to go, what they want to do, and if they want to continue in rideshare altogether. Because for some people, like I said, AB5 will not benefit them, while others will be benefited by it. So it really is going to make a pretty good couple of months figuring out everything. So no, I mean, we don't know how pay is going to work, what's going to happen, especially with veteran drivers, old drivers, versus somebody who wants to work now or sign up or whatever it might be. But yeah, we don't know anything. So once I hear something, I'll relay the information to you guys, but I don't want to say anything. The only thing I could say is, pay attention to the emails and, make that the stronger point of the real possibility of what could happen. But yeah, I'm not, other than that, I'm not sure. Uber and Lyft is employees, the earnings could go down. Yeah, it could. I mean, there's a lot of different things what could happen. Honestly, we just don't know. Because everyone gets paid equally, then anyone can join. Just for example, if the pay is over 20 an hour. Not necessarily. I mean, employee-employer relationships, they are mutual. So if they don't want to hire somebody and maybe there's not a demand, and that's kind of what they're doing in New York City right now. If there's not a demand, they're locking drivers out of the app. But that's also in response to regulations that was imposed by the TLC. So, like I said, it's a very complex issue. It's a very complex thing. It's not something that's just easy to figure out and very surface level. Each company has their right to choose however they want to, either follow the law or, challenge the law or whatever it might be. But they have their right to do that. Drivers have the right to figure out what's going on and, make decisions based for themselves, what's best for themselves. And then, the legislator can step in and say, hey, we feel that this is the right way to protect people, when maybe it might not be about protection, but it could be about a money grab. I've said that before, and I'll say it again, because until it starts going into effect, we really won't know if it's going to benefit the driver or not. So it's a waiting game at this point, for sure. When the rate went, California. Yeah, I mean, they could have done it. They could have done it a couple of different things. They could have just easily put in a minimum wage law throughout the entire state of California. They could have done a lot of things that could have been directly benefiting drivers, versus just saying we're reclassifying drivers, where now you're going to get a hourly wage. You're going to get, certain benefits, which, they could curtail and say, hey, everybody's part-time and nobody's going to get certain benefits, kind of like Walmart. So, there's a lot of different things out there when it comes to what could happen and, what types of things are going on. So, yeah, it's pretty interesting there. And when the rate went up in New York, it was a minimum impact. It was a minimum impact all around, so the companies still were getting rides, drivers were still getting rides, and passengers were still taking rides. So yeah, it doesn't, rate hikes will make a little bit of a difference, but not too much when it comes to it. The only thing you're probably going to do is going to have people, going back and forth between the apps, trying to figure out what one's the best price. But if they both raise rates together, or very close to each other, you're going to just lose out for that little bit of time, and that's it. So no, I don't think it's going to be a big deal. Some issues is the competitive business with Uber and Lyft food delivery. That's probably why rate went down. Partially, but you could try to undercut, but essentially it really was greed. That it was doing, because if you look at kind of over time what they used to do and then what they've changed and continue to change, I think it's a lot more to do with greed, especially since they filed for their IPO, they went live with their IPO, and they're a publicly traded company, and investors that invested in them, pretty much say cut drivers' pay, this, that, and the other thing, trying to undercut even more. Because they want to get paid, they want to keep the stock price either going or where it is or going up. So yeah, unfortunately, it's going to be a big problem there. Your husband, I both do DoorDash and Uber, and he does Lyft, but I don't always go in a community. I do videos over Uber and DoorDash, but mainly. Okay. Yeah, it's going to affect a lot of people. The reason why Uber and Lyft keeps low is because they do not want to have low supply drivers, so that they keep paying down or always be drivers available at all times. Not necessarily. I mean, that could play into effect of it with having drivers online, but if they were paying drivers a good wage or a good rate, that was much higher than what it used to be, you probably have a lot more drivers on the road just because they know that they're making a pretty decent buck. So, I mean, it's a catch-22, I guess, if you want to look at it that way. Companies don't have to guarantee a wage or benefits or full-time hours. No, they don't. And that's kind of going to be a pretty interesting thing to see what happens. Because yeah, they can try to undercut everything, and then that'll just prove that they just don't give a shit about drivers. Or they could truly work and make something that will, keep legislation off their backs while keeping things good for drivers. Or maybe they just realize that they went too far and now have to take corrective action. So, it's going to be very interesting. But yeah, other than that, I just want to let you guys know, yes, AB5 did pass before and was just signed by the governor earlier today. So you're probably going to see a lot of that. Now, this again is just in the state of California. It does not affect anywhere else currently right now, but it could open the door for similar legislation to happen in different states. Primarily something like New York could be next, and that's the state I'm living in. So yes, AB5 is something I watch very closely because it is very possible that AB5 or something like it could come to the state of New York. And I hope not, because I don't want to. I don't want to see that. But that's not what this is about. So 30-hour work week, so no benefits. Yeah, very possible. Like I said, we don't know what's going to happen. Once I find out more information on what the companies are planning to do, what drivers are planning to do, all that, what the legislation is going to look like and all that, even more so when it actually I mean, we all know what the bill looks like, but when it comes to how it's going to be implemented, when, and all that, I'll relay that information to everybody so we all know and can make the best informed decisions. But right now, nobody really knows what it's going to look like. It's going to be all speculative, but each company could, in fact, put their own spin on things on how they want to operate going forward in the state of California, which could be essentially what their emails were that they sent out, or it could just be scare tactics. Either way, we got to take it as it comes and figure out exactly what it means once they actually say what they're going to do for sure. It's going to be a domino effect. It very well could be. Very well could be. And the reason why it could be an effect, I don't think it's going to be because it's going to affect drivers well. I think it's going to be a money grab because the state is poised to make $7 to $9 billion in additional tax revenue by having up to 1 million people now reclassified as employees instead of independent contractors. So I think other states who like taxes or want more taxes, it's probably going to affect those states first. They're going to look at it. Hence, like I said, New York. What's up, No Limitation Rideshare? How's it going, man? It's always about the money. Yeah, absolutely, 100%. So I always say follow the money trail, and if you peel back the layers with AB5, sure, they put on the surface. It's going to be good for drivers because of whatever reasons they give. But if you peel back the layers, I do think it's a money grab where they're playing drivers as pawns and just trying to make more money. So we'll see. Yep, state wants it. They're going to get taxes from paychecks, 100%. So yeah, like I said, time will tell if it's actually going to benefit drivers in any way, shape, or form or not. But until that time, we don't really know until they start coming out with what's going to happen, what it's going to look like. Because now it is up to Uber and Lyft and DoorDash, Instacart, all of these other companies that are on the chopping block, so to speak, what it's going to look like for them and what they're going to do. All right, guys, I'm going to end this now. Hope you guys were able to understand that a little bit, but yeah, keep it as a gig contractor. I wouldn't mind that, but yeah. All right, it's going to end now. Hope you guys have a great rest of the day. As always, never drink and drive. Always tip your drivers, and we'll see you next time.